My goodness, I feel like I've been talking forever now. Hello, everyone. Welcome to my channel. I am so excited to talk to you guys about the amount of books that I've read this month. I've been under kind of a reading slump lately, so this month has been amazing. I've read 13 books for the month of August, and I'm so excited to tell you about everything that I've read. So let's just dive right in. So the way that I'm going to break these books up, I'm going to break it down from my least favorite to my favorite. I'm going to break it down to my least favorite to my favorites. It's going to be a shock to you guys, or maybe not a shock, because there's been so many talks about whether or not this book is good or not, but I gave this book, An Education in Malice, a 2.5 stars. It's very disappointing. I read A Dowry of Blood last year and I loved it completely. This felt like it was written by a completely different author. It's a companion to A Dowry of Blood. It is a retelling of Carmilla, and it focuses on dark academia, and Carmilla and this other girl named Laura gets involved into a relationship, and there's also this professor who is kind of like lording over them, that they have a very inappropriate relationship with them. I just didn't like the way that this was written. I felt like it was written very immaturely. I felt like it was not written, like I said, from the same author. It did not have that flowery writing that I came to expect when I was reading A Dowry of Blood. This felt like it was written by someone who, it felt like a fan fiction. there's no other better way to say it, which is, I don't want to compare it to a fan fiction, because I've written fan fictions in the past, and I've read some brilliant fan fictions. It's just, this did not feel like a good book. I thought the story was, the plot was derivative. I thought that the characters were not well fleshed out. And I also thought that the writing was just immature. So I gave this a 2.5 stars. It's a shame, because it was one of my highly anticipated books of the year. And yeah, so that's what I thought of Education in Malice by S.T. Gibson. The next book that I gave a 3 stars is The Wishing Game by Meg Schaefer. This was another one of the books that I was excited to read, because if you know Meg Schaefer, she's actually Tiffany Reese. That's her name for the book series, The Original Sinners. And I love The Original Sinners. I love The Original Sinners series. I think it's like one of those books that is like dark and twisted and also extremely sexy. But this is her foray into like literary fiction. And she's under a different name now and published in one of the big publishers, which I'm so happy for her. But this book wasn't it for me. The story follows Lucy, and Lucy wants to adopt this little boy. And the boy can't be adopted by just anyone, because they need to have, you know, money to adopt someone or to foster someone. And Lucy's very down on the luck. She doesn't have any money. But she gets a part of this game, which is like this dude has like her favorites books. Think of like Willy Wonka for books. And she's a part of this game along with some other people who are going to win this book. And if you win this book, then you can sell it and you can like get millions of dollars, and her entire life will be set, and she gets to adopt this kid. Anyways, it's a very heartwarming story. Like, I knew what it was going for. I knew everything that it was trying to set up. I thought the writing was really good. I just didn't like Lucy as a character. I thought she was everything was so repetitive. Like, I get it. You really want to adopt this kid. You really like this kid. It was so repetitive. She kept on mentioning it over and over and over again, to the point that I thought it was super annoying. I didn't believe the romance in the story, and the romance in the story was just touched upon, and it didn't really elaborate on it. So I thought it was just on a precipice, and that was also disappointing. And I didn't think the game that was happening in the story was as whimsical as I wanted it to be. And so everything, all in all, I just thought this book was all right. it could have whisked me away if it focused more on the game factor, I think, and the fact that these individuals went to the island to win this book. I think it could have been a really interesting setup if it focused more on that instead of the adoption that was repeated over and over again. But, and the ending was just so, not cliche, but very convenient. I thought the ending was just very convenient in this book. It was just an all right book for me. A little bit disappointed, but I gave it a 3 stars. The next book I read was Swana in Love by Jennifer Bell. I gave this a 3 stars. So Swana is this 14-year-old girl who is kind of on this phase where she's like rebellious. She everything is falling apart at home. Her parents are in the middle of a divorce. Her mom just got a new boyfriend who's a Russian lover. And Swana feels like her mom is not really focusing on her. And she's also feel like she's taking care of her little brother. Her mother pulled her out of camp to bring her to this like arts retreat, like in New England somewhere. And Swana just got bored and decided that what she's gonna do is find someone in order to not only entertain her, but to also see if they can rescue her and bring her back to New York City. So her main goal is to go back to New York City where she's from. And she doesn't want to be in New England any longer. Is it New England? I think she's in Vermont, actually. Anyway, whatever, I forgot. So she meets this guy, Dennis, who is this 37-year-old man, and she gets in a romantic relationship with him right off the bat. I mean, it's extremely controversial, obviously, because Dennis is a grown-ass man, and you know he should not be involved with some child. She did lie about her age from the very beginning, but after they were in an intimate situation, she let him know that she was a teenager. She didn't quite tell him she was 14 until way later on, but you know, there's a lot of faults with Dennis. There's just nothing I can say that's not a fault with him. Swana, she's like written as like a Lolita character. She doesn't care about Dennis' relationship. She doesn't care if her relationship is destroyed. Her main goal is for Dennis to carry her back in New York and for Dennis to distract her life that's happening right now. That her mom is like with this dude that's annoying her and our life is falling apart. Anyways, I gave this a 3 stars because I think it was written in a way that was supposed to be satirical. It was supposed to be super witty, and Swana was supposed to be pinned out as an unhinged character. But I end up just feeling really bad for Swana as just like a misguided youth that put herself in a situation that could have been really dangerous. And she's just surrounded by adults that are taking advantage of her. And she thinks she's so smart, but in reality, she's just a very misguided teenager. So I gave this a 3 stars because I don't think it's what the author intended it for it to be. But ultimately, it was a good book, but it could have been better if I didn't feel so bad about Swana throughout the entire thing. So 3 stars. The next book I read was Kingdom of the Faerie by Kerri Maniscalco. Kingdom of the Faerie is the 3rd book in the Kingdom of the Wicked series. It took me about a year to finish this book. And it wasn't because the book was terrible. I just wasn't in a mood to read romantasy for such a long time that I went through the first 2 books in the trilogy. And then when it came to the 3rd book, I just stopped in the halfway point and I just could not continue. But I've been in kind of like a romantasy kick lately, which is unfortunate because I haven't read any good romantasy, but I've been hoping to read better romantasy. So I picked this book up, and it's sad that it took me so long to read it because I actually really enjoyed it. I ultimately gave this a 3.75 out of 5 stars. The reason why I didn't give it a 4 stars, which it probably deserved, was because it took me a year to read this. So if if it took a shorter time for me to read this, I probably would have given it a higher rating. But the Kingdom of the Wicked series follow the King of Wrath, who's one of the princes of hell, and the princes of hell are representative of the seven deadly sins. And there is this girl, I forgot her name. Let's see, what's her name? Emilia. Emilia just lost her sister, and she has been told for a very long time that witches and the princes of hells or whatever do not interact or mix up with each other, or bad things are going to happen. And she gets involved with them. And throughout the trilogy, we find out that her story is not what it seems to be. And there's all this like secrecy. And then there's like this lot of passion between her and Wrath. The first book is very much YA. The next two book is extremely adult. It goes into very sexual territory, and I think it really like focuses on a romanticy factor. So I think going into the first book, you might think this is like a regular YA book, but for the other two books, it's definitely extremely adult. So if you ever read a YA book and think to yourself, I wish this was an adult book, then this series kind of takes it there for you. So I gave this a 3.75 stars. The other two books were 4 stars for me. I think overall the books are 4-star books, and I'm willing to read. I can't wait to read The Kingdom of the Fallen of the Throne, whatever it is, Fallen Throne, or other two books that is on the Prince of Envy, and like the other book that's on the Prince of Gluttony, I think, or whatever. But yeah, so that's what I gave this book. The next book I have is Vampires of El Norte by Isabel Cañas. I gave this a 3.75 out of 5 stars. So this was another book that took me months to read. I started this in April and I finished it now in August. So Vampires of El Norte focuses on Nena and Nestor. Nena and Nestor grew up as being friends with each other in El Norte. And then something dramatic happened when they were kids that resulted in Nena getting hurt. And Nestor thought that she was dead, and then he ran away. And when he came back, he found out that she was alive. And she didn't really know that anything particularly happened, didn't really know why Nestor ran away. And they have a very estranged relationship because of that. And all throughout the entire thing, there are vampires, and there's a war that's happening between Americans and where they are in Mexico for lands. Like the Americans want the Mexican lands. And also there are these vampires that are killing people within their community. And it's a very beautifully written book. I think Nestor and Nena's story is very dramatic, but also like very loving. And the stakes are extremely high because of the war. And they kind of have like a Romeo and Juliet situation because, well, not so much. There's like a rich girl, poor guy situation because Nestor works for Nena's father on his ranch. She's like a noble woman in the community, and he is not. So their relationship is not destined to be together, so to speak, because of their different classes. But all the while they are, the community's also together, bonding together in order to fight the Americans that are trying to take their land. I think it's a really well-written book. The reason why I gave it a 3.75 other than a 4 is because just like Kingdom of Fair, it took me months to finish this book. Maybe I wasn't in the right mind frame for it. I actually listened to the audiobook more instead of reading the book, and I think the audiobook is done extremely well. It's told there's 2 narrators, and it's just incredibly well done. So I gave this 3.75 stars, but I can be convinced to give it a 4-star. So that's what I feel about this. The next book I gave a 3.75 out of 5-star is The Unmaking of June Farrow, which is by Adrienne Young. So this this plot is very difficult to explain because the character's life is very difficult to explain even to her. So June Farrow is a woman that comes from a long line of Farrow women that are cursed. They all eventually go insane, or they die insane or disappear while being insane. And June knows that this is going to be her destiny because as much as she's hiding it from her community, she's already seen splinters in her reality. But I feel like this is all I can tell you about this, because this journey takes itself into the 1900s, the 1950s, and it's set in present day, but it goes into various timelines for various reasons. And I think going into this blind is the best thing to do. So June's main goal is to find out what happened to her mother, Susanna. And in the process of finding out what happened to her mother, Susanna, who disappeared when she was pregnant, and then June showed up when she was like a newborn in the community. In the process of trying to find out what happened to her mother, she uncovers love, she uncovers extreme family secrets, and she uncovers the magical things that happens with the Farrow women. June also wants to break the curse on the Farrow women, and you see how she attempts to do this as well. I gave this a 3.75 star. I think this book was extremely ambitious. It had a lot of stakes, and it wanted to do many things. I think the writing really captured me. It was like a slow build. I like slow writing, especially when it's working towards something, and I think it really did that. Why it didn't give me 4 stars is because it had all these different elements in this book, and I was waiting for it to be kind of like an epiphany at the end, or something huge at the end. I wanted it to tie together and be something dramatic, but it didn't really get that way for me. I thought that it had really great ideas, and it had really great dangling threads, but they didn't tie back together in a very satisfying way. I will read from Adrienne Young again. I think this book was just super imaginative, and it's one of the most imaginative books that I've read in a very long time. It just didn't deliver in the way that I wanted it to deliver. So I gave this a 3.75 out of 5 stars. We're getting into my 4-star books. Can't wait to talk to you about them. The first 4-star books is When Among Crows by Veronica Roth. I gave this a 4 out of 5 stars. It's a novella. If Veronica Roth's name sounds familiar to you, she's the author of the Divergent series. And I know the Divergent series is very controversial because of the ending, but I actually really enjoyed the Divergent series. Granted, I watched it as a movie and I didn't read the books, but I'm a fan. So I went into this book kind of with a low expectation because of the ending of the Divergent, and because the Goodreads reviews for this has been a mixed bag. But I left it feeling really good. So it focuses on these characters, this guy named Dimitri and this girl named Alla. And Dimitri and Alla, it's very hard to tell you the plot of this because it's such a short book. This is 200 pages. This is less than 200 pages. This is 166 pages. Let's just say Dimitri and Alla bonds together. They're from different societies or species, and they come together to find the witch Baba Yaga for their own reasons. And in the course of them bonding together to find Baba Yaga, they uncover secrets about each other. They uncover secrets about their world. And it's just a very, really good book. I think it's in this 166 pages, it was fast paced. You also get a lot of character development, and everything was just tightly written. I think the only reason why I didn't give it a 5 star is because it was so short and I wish that it was longer. But I can't wait for the second book. It's clearly going to be a second book because this was left on a pretty significant cliffhanger that you really want to know more about what's happening. You also have a queer beginning romance in this book, which is I felt it was really cute, and I'm like a fan. So yeah, I gave this a 4 out of 5 stars, and I recommend this to you. If you're a Veronica Roth fan, if you are a fan of the paranormal and monsters, but also a mix of mythological creatures, then this is for you. Next book I gave 4 stars is Margot's Got Money Trouble by Ruthie Thorpe. So Margot's Got Money Trouble is about this girl named Margot. She's 19 years old. She is pregnant. She had a baby from her professor. She had an illicit relationship with her professor and it resulted in a kid. And she's not necessarily prepared to have a child, as many 19-year-olds aren't. She's not from money, and she's realizing that a lot of the decisions that she's made is unraveling around her. The professor's no longer in her life. Her mother really doesn't want to help. She's living in a situation where she has like a bunch of roommates. They're all filthy, and it's not really a good environment for her child. She also lost her job because she has to take care of her child and she doesn't really have the time in order to do so and work at the same time. She also can't afford childcare. She just has so many things happening that really makes her have money trouble. So she decided to create an OnlyFans. And I love a girl that is very entrepreneurial. She creates an OnlyFans, and to the dismay of so many people in her life that weren't really there for her to begin with, but all of a sudden, all these people that weren't really there to begin with has something to say about her OnlyFans. And the OnlyFans that she created is finally making her make some dough and to support her child. But then these people come back into her life. It's just a big thing. I don't want to really spoil too much about this, but it's really about this coming of age story and about this girl really finally coming into her own. And she doesn't make the wisest decisions. But what I like about Margot is that she learns from her mistakes, and fairly quickly in the book too. She learns from her mistakes fairly quickly about the book and admit when she's wrong. She takes accountability for her actions. And I can't say that about a lot of people in life. They do not take accountability for their actions. But Margot takes accountability for her actions, and I really appreciate it. I don't know why I didn't give this book 5 stars. It just felt like a 4-star book to me. It gave 4-star energy, but Margot's Got Money Trouble, I recommend it. It's such a good book. Yeah, that's what I felt about this. Next book I read was Not in Love by Ali Hazelwood. This book I gave a 4 out of 5 stars. Are you shocked? I know I am, because everyone on Goodreads and on social media said that this was their least favorite Ali Hazelwood book. But this was my favorite Ali Hazelwood book. I thought this was so well done. I thought the characters were charming. They had their issues, and I don't know, I just really, really liked this book. So this book follows Rue and Eli. Rue works for this like private science company with her friends. I don't remember her friend name, but it's the owner of the company. And Eli is this this financial institutions that's trying to buy the company. And in buying the company, it could result in Rue losing her job, or it could result in her friend who's the owner to lose her job. A lot of bad things can happen. So they're on opposing sides. So they have a lot of things that are working against them. However, Rue and Eli gets into this very sex-based relationship. They're like F-buddies, essentially. And they got into this relationship because they have this attraction to each other that they just cannot stay apart. And they fall in love through their explicit intimacy with each other. And I think it's real, you know, like, And for a long time, they're just like not in love with each other and their relationship is just physical. But and I don't know why Ali Hazelwood said that this was like an erotic book. I don't think it's erotic at all. I think I've read a lot of erotic books that has like zero plot. This had like a really good plot. And I think what it really did well was like in their erotic scenes, it built out a lot of character developments. It built out a lot of things that moved the story forward. I really appreciated this book. I think it was really well done. It's the highest rated I ever gave Ali Hazelwood. I have never given her anything over 3.75 stars. This is a 4-star for me. The book's also very pretty. So that's what I felt about Not in Love by Ali Hazelwood. I'm a fan of Books and Lala, so Kayla, and she loves this particular book that she read last year. So I wanted to pick it up myself because why not? So I read Emily Wilde's Encyclopedia of Fairies by Heather Fawcett. And I also read Map of the Otherlands, Emily Wilde's Map of the Otherlands by Emily Fawcett, which is book 2. So what are these books about? So Emily Wilde Encyclopedia of Fairies. This is about this woman named Emily Wilde. She's a professor in around the 1800s or the 1900s, whatever. Around the 1900s, yeah. She's a professor in the 1900s, and she's in search of finding the hidden ones, which are fairies. And she goes to like this obscure area in Europe to study these creatures. And this book is written as her field guide / diary, where she's writing all this information about the hidden ones. And to her dismay, her rival, who she thinks is a rival, but is also her only friend, Weldon Bambley, accompanies her. And they have this kind of push and pull relationship. It's kind of like a grumpy sunshine situation. She's grumpy, he's sunshine. And their relationship is just like very sweet. What I really like about this book, the writing is extremely pretentious, which I enjoy personally. And it has like this very academic feel to it, which I'm also a fan of. And Wendell and Emily's push and pull relationship, I feel like it's just really good. It's not as romantic as you might think. It's not a romantasy book. It's like really fantasy. And there's a lot of fade to dark situation that happened in the second book, not so much this book. But I really enjoyed this, so I gave it a 4 out of 5 stars. The second of the Otherland, I can't really tell you what it's about without spoiling it. Let's just say that Emily and Wendell's relationship takes a more intimate turn as they come together to uncover secrets of his past. And they are accompanied by this professor named Rose, Ferris Rose, and Emily's niece, Ariane, I think. It's also a 4-star book for me, but it's different kind of 4-star book. In a lot of ways, I gave this a 4-star because of the fact that Emily and Wendell's relationship kind of went to the next level. But in a lot of ways, I feel like it's not as good as the first book because there's not enough tension. The first book was just really good in terms of academic stakes that I feel like wasn't present in this book as well. But I really enjoyed both of these books, and I cannot wait until the third book comes out in February, I think. So Emily Wilde's Encyclopedia of Fairies and Emily Wilde's Map of the Otherlands, I recommend. They're great. We're getting into our high ratings. This book I gave a 4.5 stars is The Haunting of Velkwood by Gwendolyn Keast or Gwendolyn Keasty. I'm not really too sure how to pronounce her last name, but it follows this girl named Talitha and Talitha. And Talitha comes from this street called the Velkwood Street. Talitha, her last name is Velkwood. Her family names after the street for various reasons. But the Velkwood Streets suddenly one day turned into a ghost town. It's like a paranormal town. No one can get into this, no one can get on the streets, and they're just like ghosts all over the damn place. And scientists are coming from all over the place to try to figure out what's going on with the Velkwood Streets. And also, just like the government has like secured it. The only people that can go on the street is Talitha and two other people who are from that area as well. Now, these three girls, they have various secrets. It's just a very, it's such a good book. You know, it's a horror book that is very innovative. You'll never read another horror book like this, in my opinion. It's just such a very innovative book. What Gwendolyn did that made it very innovative is just like, it has a lot of hearts. They deal with like a lot of topics that are, if I tell you, it will be a spoiler, but it deals with a lot of real topics that I find, you know, heartbreaking. And those particular topics are a part of the horror story in itself. It's the reason why the streets turned into what it turned into. I give this a 4.5 out of 5 stars. I know I'm not really explaining myself properly on why I love it. Just trust me on this. It's such a good horror book. So my camera just ran out of space, so I had to clear some stuff up. But the last book that I read, it was the last book I read, but it was also a book that I gave a 4.5 out of 5 stars. It's called The Haar by David Soderbergh. And The Haar follows this woman named Muriel. She's like in her 80s. She lives on the Scottish village, and it's these American rich people came into the village because they want to buy the land and create like golf courses. And she refused because this is where she and her husband lived. This is where she raised her family, and she just doesn't want to move, and not for any money in the world. And these people are just horrible people to her. Meanwhile, there's this fog that is coming that's called the Haar. And in this fog, this creature that's called Avalon lives in there. And Avalon and Muriel, they kind of like create this like friendship with each other. And in their friendship, horrible stuff start happening. That's all I'm going to say. It's such a good read, such a good book. It's kind of like a romance story as well. But the horror is like so crazy. So I gave this a 4.5 out of 5 stars. My favorite booktubers, Books and Lala, which is Kayla and Gabby Reads, they both gave us 5 stars. So I enjoyed this book. Okay, so those were all the 13 books that I've read for the month of August. Let me know in the comments what books sounds interesting to you. And if you read any of these books, I would love to hear your thoughts as well. Until next time, bye.